Hi, welcome to Ladies of Another View on Beck, and today I have with me Jan, Carmen, and we have another dude on set like we did yesterday. Mike Heilman is the County Superintendent of Schools. Did I give you the right title?
Yes.
But we need to explain what that's all about.
Well, back in the day, there were county superintendents were pretty popular. I spent 4 years in a little tiny school in the town of Knox, North Dakota, and went for most people wouldn't know where that is, but it's east of Rugby, and went there for 4 years. And the county superintendent used to come out and visit. I can still picture her. So back when there were a lot of these small graded elementaries, country schools, it was pretty common to see the county superintendent. Now, most of our school districts are larger districts, and they have their own superintendents. County superintendents, or the work that they're assigned to do by the state, oftentimes is handled by maybe a superintendent in a large district in the county, or it might even be handled by the county auditor or somebody who's appointed to just take care of the paperwork that has to go through the county superintendent's office.
And poor Mike was just trying to retire. He was the principal at Christ the King. You've been in public instruction for over 40 years. And this is what got my attention and why I wanted to have you on today, is that a lot of people don't realize we have these country schools. They are 1- and 2-room schools. An example, and I grabbed a couple pictures. One is in Baldwin, and they, I believe, are a 2-room schoolhouse. And Baldwin has grades K through 8, and they're 13 miles north of the Bismarck State Capitol and just a little east. And they just have a real small number, so that there's 7 students per teacher.
Ooh.
Something like that. Yeah. Or well, actually, that's the Apple Creek numbers. Because here's the Baldwin School. Look at that. Isn't that cute?
It's adorable.
Yes.
And look at the playground equipment. I love it. That's stuff I remember.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the kids, when they graduate, they either go to Bismarck or Wilton High School. And then the next picture is Apple Creek. And that school began in 1878 and continues to thrive today. And they actually, the student-teacher ratio is 7 students for 1 teacher. And it's so cool because I know technically they're not all 1-room schoolhouses, but they kind of are.
They kind of are.
And as of 2017, there are 400 1-room schoolhouses across the United States. And a lot of people say, well, wait, how can a teacher instruct so many teachers in different grades? Just ask a homeschool mom that, and she'll tell you,
there you go.
that they actually get a lot of attention, and it's just a unique environment. And one more thing I want to say, and then I'm going to throw it to you. An interesting thing is with open enrollment, these enrollments were declining, and now they're growing, right?
Yeah, we have seen it, especially in the rural schools that are next to, Bismarck, Mandan. All 5 that I work with in 5 in Burleigh County have all seen an increase in enrollment. The little Naughton School, which is northeast of Bismarck, their enrollment almost doubled.
And what does that mean, almost doubled? From what to what?
I believe last year they had 8 children, and this next year they'll be over 20, or close to 20 kids.
Wow.
And that's pretty common theme for all of the rural schools. You mentioned Apple Creek. A few years ago, Apple Creek went to a K-5 alignment, and the reason they went to a K-5 alignment was because almost all of the children come into Bismarck, and their middle schools start in 6th grade.
Oh,
and so they went to a K-5 alignment and dropped below, kind of almost, at least for modern times, really their lowest numbers. They were down to under 50 children. Next year, they'll be closer to 75 children at the Apple Creek School.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So do you get a lot of students from Lincoln into Apple Creek, or?
Well, and Lincoln is actually part of the Bismarck School District.
Right.
We do get some open enrollments. I would say all of our country schools in Burleigh County and in Morton County have a certain percentage of their students that are open enrolled. Some have maybe 15%, some of them are 50% of those children are open enrolled into the district.
So are you saying that there's more homes that are actually considered county addresses versus city addresses, so you've got more
Yeah.
kids in that population naturally?
So every school district has a defined boundary.
Right.
And so if your home is in that boundary, that is your district of residence. And you must attend school in that district. The only way you get out of that school are two ways. One is through an open enrollment, and your neighboring school must accept open enrollment. In this case, Bismarck does not right now currently take open enrollment. I believe Mandan does. And most of our small schools take open enrollment, so a student from another district can open enroll. We've actually had a couple of our county schools, our rural schools, close their open enrollment because they were getting larger than what their school boards felt comfortable with or what they could handle. And so a couple of them had to say, we have to close open enrollment.
Because they like that smallness, right? And they wanted to stay
They
small.
like that size, and because it was getting to the point where they might have to hire an additional teacher, their 3 or 4 classrooms are full, and they just can't add any more to that school.
Just as a point of explanation, the open enrollment situation, I'm just wanting to understand, like within a larger community like Bismarck, there's open enrollment within the city, but just to not accept them from another school district, is that
Yeah,
correct?
So what you're referring to is what would be an in-district transfer, which means I live in the Century High attendance area, but I would like to attend high school at Legacy. That's an in-district transfer.
Okay.
Open enrollment is an agreement between school districts. I
Okay.
live in the Wilton district, but I would like to go to school in Bismarck. Bismarck has to take open enrollments. Bismarck closed open enrollment. It was either in 2008 or 2010. I was at Century High School when that happened. And the main reason was because Bismarck was growing. They needed to build schools and realized that they had nearly the entire population of a new elementary school that was open enrolled, and felt it wasn't appropriate for the district to build a building and ask the taxpayers who live in the district to build an elementary for 400 children when they had almost that many open enrollees. So they closed open enrollment at that point.
So how many schools do you have total then, as far as being the county superintendent for those schools?
So where I really support schools, there would be 5 in Burleigh County and 2 in Morton County. In Morton
Okay.
County, the 2 schools are Sweetbriar and Little Heart, which Little Heart's down at St. Anthony. And then the 5 in Burleigh County would be Naughton and Minokan, Sterling, Apple Creek, and the Manning School.
And Manning, well, we only have like 30 seconds, but Manning a decade ago had 4 students, right? And now how many do they have?
They will be at about 20 kids next year.
Wow, that is amazing that these
Yeah.
are growing and valued in the community, and that not everybody wants their kids to go to a bigger school. Some like that real small local feel. We're going to talk more about that, and we're going to take a look at what the one-room schoolhouses used to look like in North Dakota when we come back with Ladies of Another View on Beck.
Respect, innovation, trust, and excellence. These core values can be seen in every building built by Straightway Construction. In the community for over 15 years, Straightway Construction has become the premier construction company for commercial projects. From dirt to design and framing to finish, Straightway Construction is your #1 choice. You won't have to look far to find a project that has that Straightway touch. Call them today or go online to straightwayconstruction.com and let them make your vision a reality.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Hop in the rig and go down the road with me. We'll cover local and national stories that impact you. What happens with national debt? Does anybody even care anymore? Do you think Governor Burgum truly understands the legislative process?
You know, I think he's got a better understanding now than he did 2 years ago.
Why in the world are we having a conversation about being anti-vaccination? Down the road with Joel Heitkamp weekdays at 5:30 Central on Beck News and online at beck.news.
Pub 21, your one stop for fun, drinks, and food. Our spacious facility provides COVID-safe fun for you and all your friends. With nightly bingo and specials, you can be sure there's something to do for everyone. If you're staying in for the night, we've got you covered just across the way with Pub 21 Liquor. We have a wide variety of options, from wine to whiskey and everything in between. Stop in today at 1014 South 12th Street in Bismarck to see what all the buzz is about. You won't be disappointed.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck, and we are here still visiting with Mike Heilman, who is the County Superintendent of Schools for Burley and Morton. And we're talking about those small, adorable country schools with 1 or 2 rooms that some people probably don't know still exist. And that does beg the question, how are they able to afford to exist when they have such small student enrollment?
I'll try to keep this brief, but it's kind of complicated. However, 2013 funding formula had a hold harmless clause to it, which meant if a school district was getting this much money in 2013 and the new formula came in place, that number was never going to be lowered. That became problematic as schools started losing student numbers, because if I'm getting this amount and my numbers are going down, my money that I'm getting per student is becoming inflated. There'll be a change coming this next year that will change that, which is only right. So I think it's going to be difficult for a school of 4 students to stay open. Can a school stay open with 20 students? If the local effort is there and may have to support that a little bit, then I think they can. But the funding formula is going to try to get all schools on the same dollar amount, or get everybody onto the formula. And hopefully even our smallest schools will be able to survive. And if they can't on the state funding, then they're going to have to go to their taxpayers, which is only right. Then the taxpayers in that district should make that local decision to say, do we want to support this with some kind of mill levy increase? If they do, then they will. If they don't, so be it. It's up to the people that live in that district. And we always talk about local control, and that is the epitome of local control.
I was just going to say, I love that it puts the responsibility back into that community.
Exactly.
I think it belongs there more so, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I know from a previous conversation we had that COVID actually helped raise the numbers of student enrollment, because some of the parents didn't want their kids going through a hybrid model, tried some of these smaller schools, and decided, hey, we really like it. And you even have a kid that rides his horse to one of the schools, right?
Yeah, I don't think that had anything to do with COVID, but it seems like...
But it's so cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. It seems like out at the Manning School, where there's a lot of small horse ranches in that area, that every year we have a student or two that saddles up and rides their horse to school, and it's kind of a unique event. It can be a show and tell for the day.
I put it together, the horseback riding your way to school with the smaller numbers, just because it's got that quaint, old-fashioned feel to it in this age of technology and 20 to 30 mile bus rides, which some kids make, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. You know, I got to tell you a quick little story at one of our little schools every morning. And I was out there, it had to be 10 or 15 below at least every morning, and it's right along the highway. And it's the little Manning School. I'm out there for early morning visit, and the kids all come piling out of school, and they're all bundled up, and two of them have the American flag, and they run over to the flagpole, and they run the line down, and they hook up the flag and run it up, and they all run to their line, and they're lined up there, 15 kids from an 8th grader down to a kindergarten student, and they do their Pledge of Allegiance, and then they sing America the Beautiful, and the minute they finished that last note, it was just a sprint to the door. It was the cutest thing I've ever seen in my life, because they were as patriotic as you could possibly be for the minute and a half or maybe 5 minutes it took, but the minute that America Beautiful was done, they were at the door. It's time to get in the building.
That's cool.
I think we're all nostalgic for those old times, and I want to show some old one-room schoolhouses that we had in North Dakota. Now this one is in, let me see, this is an Opperud School in Williams County, 1903 to 1913. And then let's look at another one, a sod schoolhouse in North Dakota. And then an early Morton County school is the next one. And this is what it used to look like when you went to school. You know, not those big, long, modern hallways and but you know, here's something that you might find entertaining. Here's instructions to teachers in the Dakota Territory in 1872. I'm just going to pick out a couple of these that I think are humorous. Teachers will fill lamps, clean chimneys, and trim wicks daily. They had to bring a scuttle of coal and a bucket of water for the day's use. Now here's one reflection of the male-female differences back in the day. Men teachers may take one evening each week for courting purposes, or 2 evenings a week if they go to church regularly. You get an extra evening if you go to church. You're a little bit more trusted out on the having a night out. But now for women. Women teachers who marry or engage in other unseemly conduct will be dismissed. They didn't have that rule for the men. I don't know, like
Well, they could get 2 nights, and the women only got 1.
And here,
is there any chance this is unseemly conduct?
Back in the day, I don't know if this would have happened.
we have to worry apparently, and not you. And here's one more that I think was humorous. Every teacher should lay aside from his pay a goodly sum for his declining years, so he will not become a burden on society. Mike, how did you do that?
I hope
of course,
I'm not
you're still
a burden.
working.
I'm
You're
still
working after retirement.
So, evidently, my goodly sum has not been met yet.
You're just in demand. You know, you tried to retire, right? And they go, hey, would you do this?
Well, and it's been, I've had a really, really good 10 years since I stepped away from Bismarck Public Schools. I spent a year as the state director for accreditation. That was probably a little more than I wanted to do. And then a good friend of mine, Father Nick Schneider, who was at Christ the King, was looking at a way to, he's a brilliant man, looking at a way to re-energize that school, and found the Montessori method and asked if I would come and help be a part of that. And it was a privilege of mine to be able to do that for 2 years. And through that time, I've been the county superintendent, and now I also do the executive directorship for the North Dakota Small Organized Schools. So I get an opportunity to advocate for all of the small schools in the state when we have legislative sessions, and it's been a thrill.
So do you think that Montessori model would work at those smaller schools as well?
Yeah, no doubt. I think it could even work at a larger school if you wanted to go to. It's a little bit controversial, I think, for some.
But
it's a very hands-on approach that's very much based on the development of the child. Where's the child at in this stage of their development, and then what's appropriate for their learning? So it's very child-guided for much of the program. If the child isn't ready to read, we don't force them to read. It isn't saying we're not going to work on the skills that help them get ready to read, but so Maria Montessori really took the time to watch and learn how children learned, and then put together a program that, at least for Christ the King and the folks who are there, I think works very well.
And it really transformed. They were losing enrollment, and then they were like, okay, we don't have any space, and
We
we're
don't
so
have any
many
room.
people. And
Yeah.
St. Joseph in Mandan has also gone to the Montessori route too. So we actually are just about out of time here, and I want to thank you for coming. Didn't that go fast?
It does go fast.
It always does.
It was
Yeah, it's an
awesome.
exciting topic, these country schools and Montessori.
And my mother taught in a country school.
Oh, that's a
that's
cool
great.
tidbit.
How
I
cool,
love
and
it.
here you are,
Very
full
cool.
circle.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Mike.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
We'll take a break here, and we'll be right back with Ladies of Another View on Beck.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
Indoor football is back in Bismarck. Bucks football season is right around the corner. Grab a friend or family member for a night of action-packed, hard-hitting entertainment. The Bucks open at the Bismarck Event Center May 8th as they take on the Massachusetts Pirates. Catch the sweetest seats in the house right on the sidelines with VIP service at a Bucks turf table. Available now for single-game purchases. Secure your tickets today by calling 701-595-0771. Bucks football, half the field and double the fun.
At Beck Communications, we've been planning for your future. Over the past decade, we've placed nearly 200,000 miles of dedicated fiber optics in the ground. Enough fiber optic strands to circle the world 8 times. Taking no shortcuts, we connected every home and business in our service area with dedicated fiber optics. It's your personal, unrestricted, unthrottled connection to the world. Best of all, this dedicated fiber means you do not share your connection. We call this intimate dedicated connection Beck Fiber.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and as you know, my passion is to help each and every one of you get the best sleep of your life. That's why I created my new Giza Dreams bed sheets. The first night you sleep on my sheets, you'll never want to sleep on anything else.
Go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen right now to get your very own MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets. When you buy one set of sheets, you'll get another set absolutely free.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit mypillow.com.
Ever been in a cave before?
It's our first time.
All right.
Where are you going?
I'll see you at the car!
How will we?
The car! Your offer has been accepted. Ever bought a house before?
It's our first time.
All right.
Where are you going?
I'll see you at the closing.
But how will we?
The closing!
Hey everybody, I'm Doug Billings, your host of The Right Side with Doug Billings on Beck News. We bring you high-profile guests, ladies and gentlemen, exclusive guests. Now, you're not going to see these guests in most of the mainstream media outlets. Another thing that I do here is give guests a platform to speak freely. You're not going to see me censor anybody. Please join us, won't you? Weeknights right here on Beck TV and online at beck.news. Cheers.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck. We are moving right along here, and we have a guest coming to us from Indiana, and he is a clinical psychologist. Welcome to the show, Peter Malinowski.
It's a pleasure.
Hi, Peter. Hi, Peter.
Hello, it's good to be with you.
Thank you.
Great to have you.
Well, we have wide open what we're going to talk about today, but I also want to mention that you're president and founder of Souls and Hearts. What is that?
So Souls and Hearts is our online outreach that really grounds psychology in a Catholic worldview. Every psychology is grounded in some kind of worldview, some kind of anthropology. And so what we really do is we say, hey, this is about grounding it in a Catholic worldview. So that's what we offer there. We've got podcasts and courses and communities there and all kinds of resources to help people with their human formation.
Okay. And did I tell you?
Soulsandhearts.com.
Did I tell you this is a secular show?
Yeah.
I don't know if I mentioned that. I'm sure I did.
I think you did. I think
yeah.
you did. I think you were willing to have me anyway, though, Patty. So.
Yep. I'm not going to hold you being Catholic against you, since I am too. And we're just a lot of different denominations. We're all Christian within our host pool. And the reason I wanted to have you on is because you have special expertise in cults and deprogramming people. And I was interviewing you to do an article on QAnon. And I'm not saying if you followed QAnon that you belong to a cult, but you have seen some cult-like behavior among some people that really got in over their head. And you had a few clients that was the case, right?
So let me just a couple of points of clarification. First of all, deprogramming, that's got a particular definition, and that is where you actually take somebody against their will. This was happening a lot back in the 70s and the early 80s, where you take somebody that's in a group against their will, you go to a cabin in the woods or a hotel, and you actually work to, quote, deprogram them. I don't do. I do work with former members of psychologically abusive groups or cults to help them understand their experience, but after they've already made the decision to leave. And I do consult with families that have loved ones that are in these groups as well. But you know what? The interesting thing about this is that it's all about basic human needs. The reason that people get involved with different kinds of groups is because of basic human needs for security, needs for safety, needs to be seen, known, heard, loved, needs to be appreciated, delighted in. So what groups do when they're using psychological manipulation is capitalize on those basic needs. And that's when you want to work with folks to help them get over that, what you're doing is actually trying to get below whatever the conversation is on the surface to those deeper needs.
So when I was talking with you about Q and QAnon, and for people that don't know what that is, it was a supposedly military operative that had these mysterious, cryptic messages. Some were just straightforward. He was often wrong, and then it's questionable who this person really was. And there was a documentary that said it was really Ron Watkins, who's the owner of this message board that he began appearing on. And so the last message was December 6th, and it had a lot to do with government, very right-wing conservative. People said it was a lot of conspiracy theories. So whatever that was about, fine, but it took hold of a lot of people's lives. And how did you see it interfering with the lives of some people in relationships?
So what I would think of, and Michael Langoni at the International Cultic Studies Association has just come out with a 20-page paper on this. I think it's the absolute best stuff. He's the executive director. I've known him since 1992. QAnon is actually different than a lot of other groups in that it's kind of loosely organized. You might think of it as kind of these extreme beliefs. Some people would call them conspiracy theories, kind of interlinked. And what's different about QAnon, I think, has to do with the rise of social media. It has to do with people having a sense of connection and meaning and having a way of making sense of their experience when there are so many people that are feeling disenfranchised politically, disenfranchised religiously or spiritually, disenfranchised socially or culturally. Then there is like this online organization, this community, if you will, that has a powerful pull because of those deep underlying needs. So again, there's a lot of distress. I've had calls from families, a loved one is involved with this. What do we do? Because that's often really uncomfortable as people start to find out, what does QAnon really mean? What does it really believe? It's hard to understand. There's a lot that we don't know, but it certainly generates distress in families. That's for sure.
And that was kind of an internet phenomenon. We never really saw anything like that before the internet, where you had huge groups of people and a big following, and it did become very radical in a lot of ways. But are there?
And it's more than an internet phenomenon. It's a social media phenomenon. We've had the internet for 30 years now. But it's a social media. It's like a smartphone based thing, because it's There's a lot of activity, for example, on Twitter. There was a study done not that long ago that looked at some of the core QAnon followers are tweeting about 120 times a day. So there's a whole community around these tweets and retweets and likes and so forth that you would have never seen back in the 70s or the 80s or the 90s. Because that technology didn't exist. So it's actually manifesting itself in a lot of ways very differently than other types of groups. So there's a debate over whether you would actually even consider it a cult. It's kind of a breed of its own, actually.
Well, and I would think that it would be hard to define it just as a cult when you have quite a few very well-known people that have kind of dipped their fingers into it. Generals and politicians and even some people that are on fringe clergy have indicated some belief in this whole system.
Yeah, there's a lot of like layers or circles of involvement with QAnon. Some people just sort of have, and one of the things that some of the survey research that's come out in the last 2, 3, 6 months is that a lot of people that have an affinity or an affiliation in some way with QAnon don't really know that much about it. And that's not surprising because it's difficult to know what QAnon is really all about. People may think they know by trying to decode these cryptic messages that this Q figure sends out. But you're right. There's this appeal, and I think it has to do with the sense of disenfranchisement, the sense of rebellion, a sense of, wanting to be able to effectively take action in some way in a world that seems to a lot of people to be falling apart, civically, politically, economically, and in a variety of other ways. The coronavirus is another issue. So I think there's a perfect storm for something like this to be able to really get some legs.
I couldn't help but think as you were saying that, it reminded me of people that get politically active. They think they know what a political party is about, but a lot of times they don't. And they might, because they feel disenfranchised, they feel like their voice isn't heard, they feel like, where do I go from here? So that could almost be considered a cult-like kind of thing then by association. But I guess I'd be curious, how would you define conspiracy theory or conspiracy theorist, either way?
Yeah, Carmen, that's a really great question. It's often defined as an extreme belief that is implausible or that is not true. But the difficulty with conspiracy theories is that they are by definition non-falsifiable. You can't actually prove it in a number of ways. So in order for it to continue to be a theory and as opposed to a disproved idea. So some of these things do move from conspiracy theory to disproved facts. And some things that were at one point labeled conspiracy theories, like the Watergate scandal, actually did come to fruition. They actually were proven. So that's what makes the whole idea of conspiracy theories difficult. The other thing about conspiracy theories, though, is often it's a club that people use to beat other people with. It's a term that people use to beat other people with that they just don't like their ideas. Right. So that's another factor in all of this.
I think of the Revolutionary War. To me, there was, I bet they defined all kinds of conspiracy theorists in that whole process. Yeah. And yet, look where it led.
And I think the political climate right now, you don't know who you can believe, and everybody on the left is calling the right conspiracy.
Right. Well, and I think it gave people hope.
Right. And you were hearing things that you were hoping were going to be true. We're going to talk more about this when we come back, right after these messages, with Ladies of Another View on Beck.
Today's households have more digital devices than ever before. More links to family, business, education, and entertainment. Beck Communications spent over 10 years building North Dakota's fastest fiber optic internet service. Beck Lightband Internet, outpacing speeds in large cities nationwide. Lightband Internet handles all your digital needs without throttling your connection to the world. Beck Communications, valuable digital connections in rural North Dakota.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Respect, innovation, trust, and excellence. These core values can be seen in every building built by Straightway Construction. In the community for over 15 years, Straightway Construction has become the premier construction company for commercial projects. From dirt to design and framing to finish, Straightway Construction is your #1 choice. You won't have to look far to find a project that has that Straightway touch. Call them today or go online to straightwayconstruction.com and let them make your vision a reality.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and as you know, my passion is to help each and every one of you get the best sleep of your life. That's why I created my new Giza Dreams bed sheets. I started by using the world's best cotton called Giza. It's only grown in a region between the Sahara Desert, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Nile River. It's ultra soft and breathable, but extremely durable. My Giza sheets also include full 21-inch wide pillowcases that will fit over any pillow and deep pocket sheets that will fit over any mattress. The first night you sleep on my sheets, you'll never want to sleep on anything else.
Go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen right now to get your very own MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets. Giza Dream Sheets are available in a variety of colors. Use your promo code, and for a limited time, when you buy one set of sheets, you'll get another set absolutely free.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit mypillow.com.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View, and we are once again joined with Dr. Peter Malinowski, and he is a licensed clinical psychologist, and he's also the president and founder of Souls and Hearts. There's his website, and we talked a little bit about QAnon and Q, and that people were attracted to that because they were hopeful, and that doesn't necessarily mean they were a cult. And I wasn't trying to say that they were, but when you start seeing extreme behaviors, oftentimes that's associated with cults. And back in the day when I was growing up, there was a little bit more obvious cults, like Jim Jones and the People's, what were they called? The People's... Charles Manson.
Yeah. And we were always warned going to college, it's like, oh, the cults are going to get those kids, those little farm kids, you know, us little small town
Hare
kids.
Krishnas, yeah.
Stay away from the cults. The cults are going to get you. I remember being warned about that when we were, you know, in the 70s and 80s, and stay away from the cults.
I loved that song with the Beatles and Hare Krishna. I was like, I want to see some of those people. They sound really cool, you know.
Or you go to the airports and there was the guys with the white robes.
Right.
Oh, weren't those the Hare Krishnas? Yep. And so, okay, are there still cults out there, and what is a cult?
So one of the important things to remember about cults is that it's really about what the cult does. It's the deed, not the creed, right? It's not what cults believe, but how do they operate? Do they violate a person's freedom? Do they undermine a person's dignity in the pursuit of an agenda that they have in order, you know, something that they're seeking to do? Do they use psychologically manipulative techniques, intentionally or sometimes unintentionally? I mean, not all of these cult leaders are doing everything intentionally. So it really has to do with, do they meet certain criteria about how the group actually operates? Do they restrict information? Do they change the meaning of words and language within the group so that things don't mean the same thing? Do they cut off a person's outside connections, or do they attempt to undermine their external relationships? You know, are they looking for to like wear people down physically, right? So that their natural resistance and defenses against taking in things uncritically is being compromised in some way. And so, are there cults? Oh yeah. But most of the ones that I see tend to be really small. You can have a cult with 2 people in it, a leader and a follower, or a lot of them are smaller, 5, 10, 15, 20 people. That's more of what I see in this day and age. And the other thing that happens is that sometimes you see more traditional organizations get off the rails. They don't have to all be religious organizations. They can be political. They can be, philosophical. It has to do with, like I said, the dynamics of what's happening in the group and the impact that that has on the membership.
Well, your description sounds a whole lot to me like a lot of the political groups that are out there right now, the Antifa and the BLM. These people get so entrenched in the ideology that they cause physical harm to others when they might not if they had just met someone on the street and not known their political ideology was different than theirs. And I'm not saying that you're identifying any of those as cult, but a lot of those things that you listed line up with a lot of the behaviors that we've seen over the past 12 to 24 months.
That's again what you have to do, because sometimes people have very different experiences of the same group, right? There are, for example, in some of these bigger movements, if you just contribute money, or if you, sign online petitions, or you're involved, because you happen to be on an email list, you're not going to have the same experience as somebody who is at the epicenter of what's going on in that group. So there's another dynamic of like the distance that you have from the leader and from the intensity of the experience of the core members.
And when you were talking too, where do you see the defining difference between gangs and cults? Because some of the things you said kind of reminded me of gang culture as well.
I'm not an expert on gangs, but people that know more about this than I do don't actually make that much of a distinction, because the dynamic can be exactly the same. Gangs also can be characterized in some other ways, but again, if you're looking at what motivates people, it's again those basic human needs. And I think it's really important to know what those needs are. It's that felt sense of safety and protection. It's feeling seen and known, heard and understood, a sense of comfort, a sense of reassurance, feeling valued, feeling important, and believing that the group will help you to become a better person. That's all the attachment side. That's all the relational side. On the other side, you've got all the integrity issues. And this has to do with, kind of knowing that you exist, right? That you are valuable, that you're important, that you have a mission and a purpose, and that you can make sense out of your experience, that you can make sense out of the world. Those are the types of normal human needs that all of us have, that these groups can capitalize on. And in our current environment, in our current climate, a lot of what people relied on to meet those needs has been in a variety of ways stripped away. So I think there's actually a greater vulnerability to people looking to have those needs met in groups that might not be helpful or healthy for them.
And the other piece that I just thought of while you're talking too, the fact that so many people have gotten more involved with screen time versus human interaction, and how much more vulnerable that makes humans to this type of thinking and behavior.
I don't think you would see the QAnon phenomenon if you didn't have the iPhone released in 2007, because so much of it is about tweeting and retweeting and liking, and so people have become conditioned, or I would say sort of deconditioned, away from authentic human interaction into these online experiences, which I think are counterfeits that are relatively poor substitutes for real human interaction.
That's exactly what Charlie Kirk said when he came to Bismarck earlier this week. He said that the people that create the iPhone apps will not let their own children have those devices until they're at least 18. So that makes perfect sense.
You kind of get sucked into a whole nother world, and then that takes over. Peter, did you ever hear about the Bhagwan out in Oregon, Antelope, Oregon?
I mean, I've heard of it. I'm not an expert on that particular group.
I used to live out there, and it was interesting because everybody wore red. And if you went to the Portland airport, there were people coming in from France. They were coming in from all over the world. And it was a Hindu-like group. Ma Prem Sheila was his assistant. I think he owned 50 Rolls Royces, and they bought up land in Antelope. It actually really blew up. There was a lot of fraud, and there was a murder plot. I think they wanted to poison some people. But what was interesting is my husband Mark was in radio back then, radio news, and he went to the whatever the cult, the place, their compound, and he said people were talking to him like, we're doctors, we're lawyers, like we are all so different. And Mark said to me, they weren't different, they were all the same. Crazy. And I think it gets in what you say, there's that missing piece that they're all trying to find.
Right. There's something that they need. And one of the thing about these groups is it doesn't help you to find your own identity and to live that out in your particular way. There is much more of an emphasis on you conforming to how the group wants you to be. And so that's one of the differences between legitimate groups that may have high intensity, right, versus groups that are destructive. And there's a bunch of other distinctions too that distinguish these groups from the military, for example, the Marines, or from religious convents, monasteries or convents, or other types of groups that have high demands. A lot of it again has to do with is the group really interested in bringing the best to the person, or do they want to use the person for exploitative ends?
Right, that's a good distinction, because especially if you have a loved one you see maybe getting sucked into something, and we only have like 30 seconds, but just for them to understand that there's a need they're trying to fill and to
look for the
that.
underlying need. Yeah, it's really helpful. And I would recommend the International Cultic Studies Association, icsahome.com. Tremendous resources there by far for folks that are looking for help in this area.
ICSA.com?
ICSAhome.com. Yeah.
.com. All right, and I will put that up on our Ladies of Another View Facebook page if you want more information. And if you want to hear more about what Peter has to offer, go to soulsandhearts.com. Thank you for joining us, Peter. We appreciate it.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Been a pleasure, lady. Thank you, ladies, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
We'll be right back with Ladies of Another View on Beck.
Respect, innovation, trust, and excellence. These core values can be seen in every building built by Straightway Construction. In the community for over 15 years, Straightway Construction has become the premier construction company for commercial projects. From dirt to design and framing to finish, Straightway Construction is your #1 choice. You won't have to look far to find a project that has that Straightway touch. Call them today or go online to straightwayconstruction.com and let them make your vision a reality.
Deciding how to promote your business can be hard. Visit the professionals at Dakota Promotions and Printing and let them help you through your struggle. Dakota Promotions provides promotional items and apparel, from corporate gifts to team shirts and everything in between. With quick turnaround times and friendly service, they are your best choice. And best yet, you're shopping local. Visit them online at dakotapromo.com or stop in their showroom at 320 West Main in Mandan. Dakota Promotions, delivering promotions just for you.
Every great pizza has a secret. At New York To Go, that secret lies in our perfectly recreated New York water, the key ingredient to making our signature New York-style pizza. We also feature gyros, with the region's only gyro meat spit, plus Nathan's hot dogs, calzones, and our delicious jumbo buffalo wings. Try a 14-inch or our special giant 20-inch pizza tonight. You gotta know how to fold them if you want to hold them. New York To Go, we deliver for you.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
Indoor football is back in Bismarck. Bucks football season is right around the corner. Grab a friend or family member for a night of action-packed, hard-hitting entertainment. The Bucks open at the Bismarck Event Center May 8th as they take on the Massachusetts Pirates. Catch the sweetest seats in the house right on the sidelines with VIP service at a Bucks turf table. Available now for single game purchases. Secure your tickets today by calling 701-595-0771. Bucks football, half the field and double the fun.
I'm Rick Becker from No Apologies. Welcome to your after hours oasis of sanity.
How can these people not see that they're just clowns?
We help simplify and educate you on things going on in the legislature and around the country.
Asking the hard-hitting questions.
But also having Lee Stack and Sid and Marty Croft stuff, and we've talked about that sometimes. It's bad.
Watch us weeknights at 9 Central on Beck News and online at beck.news.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck, and here we are already at the lighter side.
It goes fast.
On a
It does.
Friday, woo!
On a Friday, yep.
The week went fast with having sports and stuff on last week, Thursday, Friday, and then Monday. So this was a fast week.
As a matter of
we were
fact,
confused on which day it was yesterday.
yes,
So
I said, Mary, tomorrow's Friday. You go, no, it's not. It's Thursday. And I believed you.
And I panicked.
And then Jan's like pulling out her calendar to see what day it is. So yes, ladies, it is indeed Friday, and we are on the lighter side. Have any of you ever been in bear country?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
really haven't.
And I used to live in Montana, and we used to camp, but I got a little nervous as time went on because I would hear bear stories. So here's a guy who had his iPhone with him and encountered a bear.
Well, just out here for a run, and suddenly noticed that I'm being watched by this little guy. Not so little guy. All right, hey, stay back. Hey! No! Stay back! No! Got my bear spray. No! You back up. You stay there. Good bear. All right. Hey, no. I don't care if you're hungry. I'm not your food. But, yeah, he doesn't seem all that hungry. Definitely not backing down, though. Oh, he changed his mind. All right, see you, bud. Whew. That was exciting.
His idea of excitement and my idea of excitement are two different excitements.
No, he was all winded already. I'm like, what if he had to run or climb or do, or whatever it is you crawl underneath when you encounter
And you can't
him.
outrun
Right.
a bear. You cannot outclimb a grizzly
No.
bear. And I have gone backpacking like in the Smokies, and my husband and I, Mark, were in Alaska, and we did have a bear coming at us once. My sister lived in Girdwood, Alaska, and we went with her and a couple of friends, and we hiked up the side of a mountain, and we got to the top, and we were looking with our binoculars, and somebody said, I think I saw a black bear, or brown bear, and all of a sudden a black bear pops up. And we're like, oh my gosh. And it took us forever to climb up that side of the mountain, and that bear came so fast, and you realized, what are we gonna do? And I yelled for everybody to put their hands over their head, because a long time ago, a friend of mine whose dad used to hunt in Alaska said they have bad eyesight. If a bear comes, put your hands over your head and you seem bigger than you are. When we all did that, the bear stopped, and we went down as fast as we could down like a creek bed, just so we could slide down because it was such thick brush we couldn't see in front of us. It was very scary. We were worried, and it was the talk of the Girdwood town.
Well, did you have a gun with you or bear
No,
spray?
we were just hiking. I don't even own a gun.
Who
Never
goes
have.
hiking in bear country without a gun?
I was sitting here
Or
thinking,
bear spray.
if that was my husband and I, he'd have been packing and he'd have been saying that bear ain't going nowhere without this hitting him, you know? I mean, and you don't tell a bear, I'm sorry, it's not your dog, it's not your cat, it's not your hamster. You don't say, no, don't do that. I mean,
that
it's
was
I don't
ridiculous.
know.
It's ridiculous.
That
Like
was
a
funny.
bear is going to listen to you and know language and say, "Oh, I'm scared now."
Well,
You
I've
know?
always heard the same thing you said, where you make yourself as big as possible, but you
And
get as
loud,
noisy
too.
as
Yeah.
possible.
Right.
And, try to scare them off because they don't know who you are or what you are.
And then if you are being attacked, you're supposed to curl up in a ball and cover your head, right?
If you have no chance
Right, right.
whatsoever, if you're being attacked, right, like you
Yes.
said. But I thought he was moving very slow. I mean, granted, you don't
Right.
want to draw attention and sprint because then he might go after you. But at one point, he's like all calm and like, oh, you're not, there he is. I guess he's lost his interest. At no point would I have calmed down until I got to the car.
But here's the other piece. If I'm on a hike like that and I have a bear that I spot and he starts coming towards me, I am not going to keep filming the bear coming toward me.
Yeah,
I'm going
I
to run and hightail it.
Like-
I mean, that tells me that either you're very disconnected or he really wasn't that scared or there was something weird about.
Or he's an
Why would-
adrenaline junkie. A lot of those
That
guys
could
are.
be.
And I
That
bet
could
he's
be.
probably had it happen. If he's used to that area, he's probably had it happen 10, 20 times over his lifetime, or is used to bear country.
Yeah.
Like the guy
Because
that,
he was pretty calm.
like the guy that lived in the bus in Alaska because he wanted to be friends with the bears and then the bears finally ate him.
Right,
That,
yeah.
That guy? Yeah.
And he was filming, but it was just a few years ago. There was a road race in Montana, I think it was. It was either Montana or Alaska, and somebody kind of got left behind and got attacked by a bear. So,
Yeah, but then
it
there was
happens.
Grizzly Adams, and so everybody thinks they. And Gentle Ben.
Yeah, right.
Okay, I'm dating myself, sorry.
That's all right. I'm there with you.
Yeah, wild animals, keep your distance and don't take anything for granted, especially if it's a bear. But anyway,
And
there
if they
won't-
have cubs, holy cow.
That's one good thing about North Dakota. We don't see too many bear around here. But thank you for joining us today. And coming up next is Down the Road with Joel Heitkamp. And we'll see you next time on Ladies of Another View on Beck.
Have a great weekend.
Yes,
now.
indeed.